Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 4, season 3 of the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. Good evening, Richie. Another week, another frustrating Warriors performance, but we at least had better picks. So what did you think of the round?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Brad, the round this week was a bit more enjoyable, mainly due to our upturn and our picking luck. But yeah, it was good, apart from the Warriors falling just short, but we'll cover that later on.
Definitely. And while we're here live on Wednesdays at 8 p.m, you can also catch our show at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to be covering everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of the round 2 matches and our picks, a recap and preview of the women's premiership. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we've got for each other. We'll then preview round 3 and make our picks before ending the night with a recap of the Super League. Remember to send us comments throughout the show and any questions that you want us to answer. And we may as well just jump straight into the top stories of the week.
Sounds good.
First one was kind of a late addition to the news, but as many people are aware, the COVID rules have been updated once again in New Zealand, and it now looks pretty much set in stone that the Warriors will get the last 4 home matches played at Mount Smart. I got an email from the Warriors today basically saying that as well. They'll be able to have games at the stadium with crowds, which is what they're looking for. What's your take on that, Richie? Some pretty good news.
If it actually materializes and we get both teams into Mount Smart Stadium, I'll be over the moon. You and I were sort of chatting before going on air that, we've heard it a couple years in a row now, so it's almost believe it when we see it. But yeah, it'll be great. It'll be fantastic. I'm sure it'll be full to the rafters at Mount Smart.
Yeah, it should be amazing. And we did talk before the show about the Panthers game that was meant to be at Mount Smart is still not going to be there. And you said it was probably because they want to start with a win. I think it will be it'll be great to be back there. It's been far too long for people here. I know I've missed it terribly. You get a lot of spare time in your hands when you don't get to go to a game. So, yeah, can't wait. Be counting down the days, I'm sure. I'm still COVID's always made me a little bit pessimistic. So, for all the fingers and toes crossed that it actually... I see Mark and Simon here. Evening, guys.
Hi, guys.
The first bit of news I actually had before the COVID thing was more woes for the Raiders. So we talked last week about Josh Hodgson having a knee injury. They've now confirmed that he needs an ACL reconstruction and that he'll be out for the season, which means he's officially played his last game as a Raider due to being signed with the Eels next year. It's kind of going from bad to worse for the poor old Raiders, losing Fogarty. Thankfully, they get Schneider back this week after his COVID test, but losing your starting half and your hook is not a great way to go unless you're the Roosters. What's your take on that, and how do you think that's going to affect their season?
Yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, the Raiders have a good deputy hooker in Starling, but it does hurt their depth chart a bit. And as we saw last year, once they sort of started struggling in key areas in their roster, they results weren't exactly kind to the Raiders. So we'll see how it plays out, but it's not the best news. But yeah, hopefully Josh goes well with his rehab and can come back just as good next year for the Eels.
Definitely, and we'll keep that injury chain going a little bit. Mitchell Dunn from the Cowboys has also been ruled out for the season with an ACL injury as well. I think I don't have the official stats, but I think they said we're into round 3 now, and there's been 8 ACL injuries already. I'm I'm not too knowledgeable on that stuff, so I'm not sure why it's happening so often. The Mitchell Dunn one just was a freak accident. He was in the defensive line and he kind of put all his weight on one leg to change when he got stepped, and it just went. So it's a freak accident there. But yeah, massive blow for the Cowboys. But we've also got the Panthers have lost Brian To'o for 6 to 8 weeks with an MCL injury. So yeah, a lot of horrible injuries there. It'd be interesting to see what happens to the Panthers with Nathan Cleary still out and To'o gone. I'm not going to immediately go and put them in the losing column. I learned my mistake from round one. But yeah, another big loss for the Panthers as well.
Yeah, it's a loss. I think if any team can cover it, it's the Panthers, and they've had a couple years now being up the top of the log and having to cover for state of origin representatives being out. So
yeah,
I think it's nothing new to them, and I think they can plug the hole until the cavalry comes back.
Definitely. The Tigers, I've got a little bit of news about the Tigers later on, but there's been a bit of pressure on the Tigers already after their start. And Tim Sheens has come out and defended Madge Maguire, said that his job is safe. In the history of the NRL, as you know, Richie, when someone involved in management of your club comes out and says the coach is safe, it basically means the coach is on his last legs. Do you think that's the case here?
Could be. Then maybe we'll get our preseason tip right about first coach to be sacked. It's going to be results driven, I reckon, Brad. I think if the Tigers keep going losing games, it's going to be harder and harder to maintain something. Something's got to give if you're putting a lot of losses together. So whether that's the coach or, it's hard to see the Tigers getting too much better. I mean, they look like a team in a bit of strife. Hopefully it's not this weekend they turn their fortunes around.
Fingers crossed. Simon said he thinks it happens in every sport where management of teams will support the coach. It's normally a bad sign. It is generally the case, but they've just got to improve. There's really nowhere but up for the Tigers. If they just hold it off a week and wait, that would be great for us. But the Panthers have been rumored, there's nothing official yet, but they've been rumored to offer Nathan Cleary a deal that will keep him at the club until he's 30, worth $1.1 million a season. I heard the news, and I'm still not a fan of long-term deals, as we spoke last week with Jason Tomalolo. But I think Cleary's kind of one of those guys that I would want to lock down for as long as I can. And I don't like the $1 million player type thing, but he's one of a handful in the NRL that I think is actually worth that. But then saying that, I'll be the devil's advocate. They're not really missing him right now. But yeah, I think that's a decent offer for Cleary, and one I'm sure he'll take. What about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll take it as well. I mean, he's probably the best player in the game at the moment, if not the best, in top 2, 3. He's the top draw half, so I think he is sort of worth that kind of contract. And it's hard to argue against it. He's the state of origin winning half, and now he's gone and won a title. And if my tips are correct, he'll win the Dally M this year. But whether he can do a Tommy Turbo like last year and do it after being injured the first couple of rounds, we'll see. But yeah, I find it hard to argue against him, being worth that kind of money.
I personally don't see him leaving the Panthers anyway. He's still very young. If he was a bit older and he'd won a couple of premierships with the Panthers and he wanted a new challenge to go to another team that may not be as successful and try to build them up, I can see it. But he's so young. He's just got the first taste of winning a premiership. I'm pretty sure he's comfortable in a team that's doing reasonably well, They the last 2 years they've been pretty much the most dominant team in the competition. Why leave? So, and yeah, Simon said your contract should only be renewed every 2 years. I'm a fan of 2 to 3 year contracts myself.
Generally.
I know players obviously will want the longest term they can, so they've got a bit more security. But I think I feel like it's a bit safer for both the player and the club if it's shorter. You're not going to end up getting a big injury and losing a player for that long. And also a player, like you look at if you signed Reece Walsh for 10 years on whatever he's on right now, and then he has a great 3 years and then finds out he's getting underpaid because he didn't get what he deserves now because he already put his name on the dotted line. So yeah, it gives you a thing. But then, as we're seeing, NRL contracts don't really mean anything anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to throw out the Sonny Bill Williams one, where it's not always that players want or like to have that long contract because you say as the value goes up, it's a matter of timing as to when you do it, isn't it? So one of those things. Yeah, it's not always in the player's interest. Yeah,
definitely. And speaking of long-term contracts, Jason Tomalolo watch. I'll keep this going every week, I think. Many clubs, after we talked last week about rumors about a rift and potentially him wanting to get out of the Cowboys, many clubs put their hand up to say they're actually interested if he does leave. But his manager has come out and said that he is happy at the Cowboys and they have no plans of leaving. And Todd Payton's also laughed off the rumors of there being a rift between him and Jason and said there's nothing wrong there. So it's, it's good old media spin, or it could be completely on the money. That is the cloak and dagger of NRL football right now. We don't really know, but we'll keep an eye on everything that's going. Do you see him lasting the full length of his contract?
It's hard to say, Braden. You said it perfectly in the last segment. What does a contract mean in the NRL nowadays? And saying that, I think that the price tag that he's got with that kind of money you're making, you're not really allowed a form slump. Almost, it's almost like if you're in a form slump, then people just start talking and throwing wild ideas out there that you're not happy. We'll cover it in the reviews, but he got some more minutes this week and actually looked really good. So, maybe it's just the form slump he's in, and then the noise starts.
Yeah, well, I saw that. I thought he played quite well in the weekend. We'll cover it later, but I still saw a lot of comments out there going, he played okay, but that's not the level he needs to be. He needs to be at a higher level for what he gets paid. So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. We see it right now with Luke Brooks, Ash Taylor, even Sean Johnson when he was with the Warriors Part 1, when they're on those big money deals, you really can't have an off day or even an average day. You need to be playing like 10 out of 10, which not many players can do. There's probably one or two out there that can do it consistently week in, week out. So you're never going to get that. But it's the frustrating part of getting paid to play this sport. You get offered $1 million, you're not going to say no. So be interesting to see. I guess time's going to tell. We'll keep an eye on it and see what happens with the Cowboys. I assume if the Cowboys can pick up some wins, that noise will disappear.
Absolutely.
If they continue to lose, I think we'll hear a lot more about it. That's just the case of footy right now. Going on to the Bulldogs, Trent Barrett came out in his press conference after his team's loss and questioned the referees and their decisions, and said that he doesn't coach his players to lie down, but he might do that from now on. What's your take on that?
Well, watching the game, I know he's referring to try for the scrum the Broncos got, where I think they were questioning obstruction, and also Herbie Farnworth getting a strip when it looked like the tackle was almost completed. You just got to as a team take that out of the referee's hands and play well enough to overcome it. I mean, you look across the other games across the weekend, the Warriors picked up a couple of tough calls. The Dragons picked up a couple of tough calls, which might have, had a bearing on the result. But the best you get's an apology on Monday.
Yeah.
Really, you just got to play well enough to take that kind of thing out of the ref's hands.
Yeah, and I think the NRL basically came out and said that there was nothing wrong with the decisions made in that game, but they did have the "I'm sorry" for the Dragons, which is very unfortunate considering how close that game was.
Yeah,
we've been there before as Warriors fans.
We have.
Trent should come over this side of the Tasman and be our coach for a couple of weeks to see what it's actually like. But I was talking about it a lot last year. I do think there's a lot of players. There's one in the Warriors that I'm not going to mention right now, but that's like to stay down a bit longer than they probably should. But it works. Unfortunately, or it works sometimes. There was a few where I thought contact might have been a bit high, and if I think it's high, it has to be high, surely. And the refs did nothing. So I'm not sure. It's just one of those things. Each ref has their own interpretation, and you've got to play to that ref. And that's the difference between good and bad teams. The good teams can adjust on the fly. The bad teams keep trying to do the same thing that doesn't work. So, Barrett needs to go back and get his team to play at the right level, and I think he'll be fine. Next bit of news was a bit interesting. It changed a few times on us, but there was breaking news that Jermaine Osako was going to the Eels. And I flicked you a message to say we need to write this down to talk about tomorrow night. And then I had to quickly send you another one going, he's actually signed with the Titans now. Don't know what happened there. I think it was just a case of some bad news by an inside scoop by one of the journalists over in Australia. But I was talking about it in my one of my friend groups, saying it's interesting to see him go to the Titans. I don't think they need him. But I can also see if he wants to, he's going to Redcliffe with the Dolphins. You don't really want to go and move to Sydney for a couple of months and then move back to Queensland. So maybe it was, this is the only option I have. He could have come to the Warriors, I guess. We're a Queensland team too. But staying in Queensland, but I think he's just going to be a backup, which is basically what he was being used for in Brisbane. So I'm not sure. What's your take on it? He's a handy pickup. I like him, but as we saw, we'll go over it. The Titans outside backs did quite well against the Warriors in the weekend.
Yeah, the media threw the big dummy, and we took it hook, line, and sinker, Brad. I'd pretty much already written into the news that he was going to Parramatta. My initial thoughts were exactly the same as yours. Where does he fit in at the Titans? I think at best he's injury cover, really, because looking at their back three with young Jaden Campbell, Philip Sami, and Maju, who all played brilliantly on the weekend, I don't see him getting a start over any of those guys. So presumably he's there as injury cover until he starts his Dolphins contract. Interesting. Good luck to him. I'm sure he's going to do well with the Dolphins. I've always liked him. So,
does this mean one of those guys is leaving then?
Nah.
No, I don't think so.
Nah. I think they're all quite happy there, and they're happy with their starting spots. The only thing I was going to say is potentially they were deciding to turn Campbell into a half, but I don't see that happening either, especially not for a guy that's going to be there for a couple of months. So, it'd be interesting to see as the rounds go what he is doing. Time will tell, I guess, with him. But I covered it just briefly before, but Harry Grant is tested positive for COVID. He's the player this week, so he's going to miss this week's game for a Storm. Bit of a loss. He was quite dynamic in the game in the weekend. But as you said prior to the show, the Storm kind of are a team that can recover from that type of thing. It's just a shame for them that they don't have Brandon Smith ready to go at the moment. But this is the future for them. If Harry Grant is injured or missing next week or next year, they don't have a Brandon Smith backup. But yeah, they've got quality everywhere. So I'm sure they're going to have the next immortal come out of nowhere to replace him this week.
I don't even think they need that. You look at how well Jerome Hughes is playing. He's pretty much running the show. He's getting an armchair ride from a very good forward pack and good hookers as well. But, like we were saying, they're like the Panthers, that they can plug that hole pretty seamlessly.
Definitely. And last bit of news before we actually get into the round, it's more Tigers watch. Jackson Hastings is going to miss the next 3 rounds after unsuccessfully challenging his grade 2 charge at the judiciary last night. Unfortunate news for him, good news for us as Warriors fans. I think he's been playing all right. I wouldn't be writing home about it, but he's definitely given them a bit more direction in the halves, which is something they've needed. And before I move on to you, there's been a bit of noise about Dane Lowry and James Roberts. They were seen playing pokies the night before the game last weekend. They were there till about 10 p.m. apparently. Media is saying it's a show of disrespect to the coach. I personally don't see the issue. They weren't out past curfew. They didn't cause trouble. They weren't drinking. What do you think, Richie? Do you think they need to be locked up in their hotel the night before a game, or what?
Like you said, and I think there was a bit of a blow up on NRL 360, Paul Kent and Benji Marshall. I kind of side with Benji's opinion, where they look like they weren't drinking alcohol. They were gone by 10 p.m. How's it any different from them, going out and having dinner with the family and getting home at 10 p.m. So I guess, when you're a team that's not winning games, like we were saying earlier, the noise starts happening. So it probably didn't do any harm, but, if they were top of the table, perfect record, no one would have batted an eyelid.
Yeah, I think if they had won, it wouldn't have even been mentioned. Simons mentioned that it could be a COVID risk, seeing the pokies. That is true, but the NRL have told the players that they have no restrictions against them now. So I think the only time it would be an issue is if the NRL had said you're not allowed to go out in public to deem that risk. So, yeah, until the rules say otherwise, I wouldn't go out to the pokies myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't get back at 10. I'd be there probably till kickoff. So I wouldn't do it myself. I know some people have come out saying it's not good for your preparation. You should be better. That's up to the individual. Everyone prepares in their own different ways. But yeah, I think it's just, a bit of just adding smoke, like adding more wood to the fire. That is the Tigers right now, and the only way you can silence it is with performing. So yeah, we may as well get into the round now. We've been jibber-jabbering for a bit, so I'll let you take the floor.
All right, so first game of the week, Thursday night game, Storm versus the Rabbitohs. Storm get the win 15-14, 3 tries apiece. Xavier Coates, Ryan Pappenhausen, and Cam Munster for the Storm. Alex Johnston, Jackson Paulo, and Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. It was 14-0 at halftime to the Storm before Rabbitohs fight back. Latrell Mitchell kicks a 2-point field goal to force Golden Point, and then Ryan Pappenhausen ices the game with a field goal. Exciting game. Rabbitohs were pretty slow to the blocks. What was your take, Brad?
Yeah, I almost switched it off after the first couple of minutes. When the Storm ran over quickly, it's like the Rabbitohs haven't shown up. Generally, the Thursday night game, I watch till the first half and then go to bed because I get up early for work in the morning. And then my phone kept going off. I had a look and everyone was talking about how the Rabbitohs had come back. So I turned it back on just before full time, so I got to watch the Golden Point scenario, and I think the Rabbitohs showed heart coming back in. I think a lot of that was around the change they made in the centres. They took the young Jackson Polo off, replaced them with Tane Milne, and they seemed to get a bit better in their structure. Latrell's field goal was great. It was the 1-2 bang and the turn in and go back to business. It's just a shame he did that one, and then we had Pappenhausen's little messy one to win the game. Admittedly, he had pressure on him because he was getting charged. I think the Storm, Harry Grant was a monster. Like I said, he's going to be a big miss this week. It was more surprising for me to see the Storm allow the Rabbitohs back into the match, but they just know how to win. And it was also Craig Bellamy's 500th game. So good to see them get the win for him there. But it's, the Storm, good, bad, or ugly, they know how to get the win in the end. And the Rabbitohs, going from grand final last year to sitting at the bottom of the ladder, it's not a great start for them. And I think we talked about it after round one. Maybe they're missing Adam Reynolds a lot more than they initially thought they would.
Yeah, it was a bit of the same old for the Rabbitohs, wasn't it? I think by half-time they were only completing at 50% and made something like 10 handling errors. So, it was really messy, and you can't really do that against the Storm and then expect to come out on top.
Definitely.
So the next game was the first Friday night game, Dragons versus Panthers. Brad's wooden spoon tip, nearly tipping over the reigning premiers, but the Panthers prevailed 20-16. 3 tries apiece, actually. So the man in his milestone game, Viliami Kikau, had 2 tries, and Spencer Leniu had a try. 3 tries to the Dragons, Tyrell Sloan, Jaden Sewer, Zach Lomax. It was a close one, Brad. The Dragons nearly clawed their way back into it in the second half. What was your take?
Dragons' best team in the comp. My hatred for them aside, they were impressive. I think they deserved to win this game. I think they were had a few harsh calls against them that the NRL did apologise for later. I think they just got a sniff, and they were willing and able to go all the way. It's those 2 sin bins hurt them. The Jaden Sewer one for the late charge, harsh. I thought was very harsh. I think they after the game they had someone do the timing, and it was like 0 point, or it was like 1 point something seconds late. And he's a big body boy. It's very hard to pull out of those type of tackles, especially when you're trying to close down. If it was 2-3 seconds late, then I think that's more sin bin territory. But when it's like that split second, I think it's a bit harsh. Maybe, you throw the penalty at them, but a sin bin, I don't know. I know, halfbacks in the NRL are the golden gooses, and you're not even allowed to look at them in the wrong direction. So it's, a bit of a bias. If he had done that to another forward and it was 1 second, I don't think they would have even called it. But, that's a very biased front rower talking here. So, I think the Panthers did enough to win. I don't think they'll be happy with the performance personally, but going 2-0 without Cleary isn't a bad result. And the Panthers forward pack's just dangerous. Kikau, it was his milestone match, and I think he's set to have a big final year with the club.
Yeah, you summed it up pretty much spot on, Brad. Similar to the Storm Rabbitohs game where the heavily favoured team races out to a big lead. I think it was 20-6 at halftime, and then the Dragons just somehow clawed their way back bit by bit. And I agree with the sin binnings, especially Jaden Sewer, I think was a very harsh one, and it hurt. Hurt the Dragons. Who knows? Those calls don't go against them. Perhaps they come out on top there, but not to be for them, unfortunately.
No, before we go, there was actually one more thing that I was meant to mention. The independent doctor reared his ugly head in this game. Jack Bird, the Dragons were on a roll. Jack Bird did a big run, kind of got a little bit of a knock to the nose. And then when he got up, he was going to play the ball. The independent medical personnel got into the referee's ear and said, you need to take Jack Bird off. Kind of swung the momentum away from the Dragons in that moment. And it's kind of a scary look, but it being the dramatic one of the show here. A scary look of the impact they could actually have in games. You imagine if that was the Panthers and it was like Nathan Cleary, it's a nothing look, and he's like, no, we've got to take Nathan Cleary off now. I know they're trying to look in the best interests of the players, but he wasn't even bleeding or anything. It was just like a wayward shot. It wasn't even a high shot. They didn't even get a penalty for it. So I feel like if it was a situation where you're penalizing the defensive side, then maybe that is relevant. But yeah, it's a dangerous sign of what could potentially come.
Did you think that Jack Bird was trying to milk something, and then that's possibly a bit of karma having to leave the field?
Oh mate, everyone's trying to milk everything now. I don't think so, because he was a bit slow, but we've all had a little flick on the nose. It does slow you down a little bit. It didn't look like he was trying to milk it too much. He wasn't acting like he had his head knocked off or anything. But yeah, who's to say for sure?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next Friday night, the late Friday night game, the Roosters 26-12 over Manly's Seagulls. Brad's second team, his mistress team, if you will.
It's our premiership teams against each other this week.
It was, and mine came out on top. I'll claim that. But it was 5-2 for the Roosters. Drew Hutchison, Daniel Tupou, Nat Butcher, who I thought had a great game. He picked up a double, and Tatili Tupunua. And 2 tries to Manly, Carl Lawton and Daly Cherry Evans. 22-0 at halftime. And I think the rain came and slowed the Roosters down a bit. But what did you make of it, Brad? The Manly weren't looking like your premiership team.
Well, it's very similar to what we saw last year from them. The only difference is this year they have Tommy Turbo. So they had kind of an excuse and a little asterisk next to their poor performances last year going, well, if Tommy was there, they would have a shot. They don't have that excuse now. It's completely on them. I don't know. I think, is it time where I have to switch and go back to hating Manly and liking the Dragons? I don't know. But yeah, I just don't know what to say. What's wrong with them? They're lacking spark. Their defense is struggling. Tommy Turbo's not having the impact that he normally has. If they don't sort it out quickly, it's going to be a bad year for them. But the Roosters, talking about them, they're going from strength to strength. I think that Carey-Walker combination is building nicely. If I have any negative to say about Walker right now, is that he goal kicks like I do. If he needs to sort that out, they were well ahead in this game, so it didn't matter. But you put this Roosters versus Storm or something where it's going to be tight and those points matter. You need to nail your kicks. He was 3 out of 5, so he only missed 2, which isn't that bad, I guess. But you kind of want your guy to be hitting like that 75, 80% or better. So yeah, I don't know. That's probably the only negative, which isn't bad. When you look at it, if the only thing you can complain about is goal kicking, the team's not going that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Manly just look really rusty to me. Like they've both games, first week and then this week, just look like not disinterested, but like they just can't get into the games. The Roosters, however, bounced back really well. I thought their pack was looking, hard running and fast. Crichton, Tupunua, Butcher, all looking immense. And then I think, like you say, the halves just built, with a game under their belt from last week, they just built on that and looked a lot better this week. Not too great for the Seagulls, but it's only early season. We saw them bounce back last year.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the game we had the most interest in, but probably least want to review, the early Saturday game. Titans pipping the Warriors in a close one, 20-18. It's another close game we've lost, quite a bit like last year. We dropped a few of these very close games. 4-3 for the Titans. Bo Fermor scoring in the very first set of the game. Greg Marzu and Philip Sammy, I was sick of the sight of them by the end of the game. Marzu picked up 2 and Sammy got 1. For the Warriors, Wade Egan, Montoya, and Adam Pompey got the 3 tries. Great start for the Titans. We clawed it back to be somehow leading 18-16 at halftime, but yeah, not to be. Unpack it for us, Brad.
Yeah, it's just the Warriors let themselves down again. Second week in a row, second slow start. I think most people probably weren't even sitting in their chair comfortable enough when that first try came up.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, no. I was talking with the flatmates about how dangerous AJ Brimson is. And then, he managed to spy a gap between Lodge and Katoa and was away. They did, to their credit, manage to come back and be leading at halftime, but they need to come straight out of the gates. It's that cliche, but they've got to start strong. You can't expect to get a lot of wins in your season if you're always going to be 2 tries behind after the first quarter of football. For the Warriors, though, the forwards did put in a lot of work. Every forward, bar Matt Lodge and Bailey Sirenen, ran for over 100 meters. Matt Lodge went off. He was sick. We got a great slow-mo replay of him throwing up on the sideline, which is great for our household that was eating dinner at the time. But even in his effort, he still was sick and still managed to run 60-odd meters before he went off. Bailey Sirenen put in a lot of work. He ran for 2 meters. He was on the savage end of my review this week. I won't go into it too deeply here, but I basically said he was a waste of space. He offers nothing to the team right now and either needs to be dropped or improve. Simple as that. But the team just made silly choices. They were kicking early on the tackles, dropping the ball, just coach killers. But the positive on that type of thing is that stuff that can improve. Hopefully we just see it this week as opposed to waiting another 4 or 5 weeks to see them improve that. But yeah, the Titans, they just look better with AJ Brimson. Unfortunately, the moment they found out that the Warriors couldn't defend on the edge was when they started throwing it to the edge. As we saw, they were throwing cutout passes. I know there's been a lot of negativity thrown more on Toya's way, but I'd like to see many teams try to stop Marzu when he's running in open space. He's a very hard man to stop. And yeah, David Fafita, I'll get a bit negative. He needs to add more impact to the side. It's that exact conversation we had at the start about players on the big bucks, how they've got to deliver week in, week out. He had a couple of impacts. He set up the second try for Marzu with the cutout pass. But I find he was kept relatively quiet, and I'll call him out, unlike Josh Curran, he doesn't go looking for the ball. If I had a guy like Fafita, I'd be telling him every week, if the ball's not coming your way, go get it. Because when he gets that ball, he's dangerous. But yeah, if it's not flinging out his way, he'll just happily sit on his edge and do nothing. But yeah, what do you think?
I agree. Obviously, our pack, I thought, laid a good enough foundation for us to win this game. I just felt like collectively we weren't good enough to get over the line. I mean, we missed opportunities like Adam Pompey dropping a nice, offload from Jesse Arthurs, which was slightly behind him. But I think at this level, you got to catch that and dot over when you've got the line in front of you and you're unmarked. And like you said, we were kicking early in the count, third tackle more than once. And then on fifth tackle, the ball was ending up out in the centres or a forward's hand, and we getting tackled on the 5th tackle. So, we're holding it when we should be kicking and then kicking when we should be building pressure. So, it's stuff we can improve on. And I think the positive for me is the forwards are laying a good foundation. And I've got the biggest man crush on Josh Curran at the moment. He's just a monster. And seeing him do his thing, I think he got 45 tackles, just a workhorse. Charge down. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Massive man crush. Seeing him do his thing with the mullet flowing out the back of the headgear, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, he's been fantastic this year, and there was already talk that Brad Fittler's already said if he keeps it up, he will most likely find himself playing for New South Wales. So that's probably the only negative I have for him, is that unfortunately, if he does get to play Origin, it's for that horrible New South Wales team.
Beautiful team. Yeah. The game following our one on Saturday, Sharks in a very tight one over the Eels, 18-16. This game was seesawing back and forth. 4 tries to 2 in the Sharks' favour. Ronaldo Mulitalo, Sione Katoa, Connor Tracy, and Tig Wilton getting the game winner right at the end. To 2 tries to the Eels, Mitchell Moses and Reid Marnie. This was a seesawing game, Brad. Quite entertaining and a very tense finish. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought the Sharks looked good on attack. Nicholas Hines, his goal kicking wasn't that great. Going back to that, he missed 3 conversions. They could have really helped them push this out.
Eels, he got the one that mattered, though.
He got the one that mattered, exactly. His combination with Matt Moylan, I think, is starting to develop. And I know everyone's waiting on Trindle to return, but I wouldn't give up on this partnership just yet. Yeah. I think they show they work well together. The Eels are just a hard team for me to pick this year. They looked off the pace and unsettled, specifically unsettled with the attention Mitchell Moses was getting when kicking. They had a lot of pressure on him. He was getting hit late a few times. This game, he was getting hit late and there were no sin bins like the Dragons game for some reason. I thought it was all okay as well, but that's what your forwards are there. They're meant to protect your halves in that situation and get it back. Yeah, put the thug life up. No such thing as a higher tackle in my eyes. But, it was a thing we saw last year with the Eels where they either won by 100 points or they lost in the nitty-gritty. We're kind of seeing that here. Last week it was very close with the Titans, but larger scores, obviously, and they were at the edge there. This was the kind of game where they need to show that they can put teams away when they get close enough for a sniff. If they can start doing that, I could be confident in them being a top 4 side. But the Sharks, last year they were the team that bet everyone below them, bet no one above them. So the fact that they managed to beat the Eels is a good sign for them.
Yeah, I don't have a lot more to add to what you put. The Sharks definitely looked a bit better this week, and the new players coming in, have had another game to gel. I don't have a lot more to add other than I tipped the Sharks and Brad tipped the Eels, so I was right in the result of this one pretty hard. And I after the Warriors game, I celebrated it like it was a win for me.
Yes, well, because you picked the Warriors, didn't you? So
I did. I needed one back on you.
You did.
Then the late game on Saturday, Cowboys. We didn't see this one coming, Brad. I think we both tipped the Raiders, but Cowboys getting up big over the Raiders, 26-6, 4 tries to 1. Murray Taulangi, the hammer, Kyle Felt, and Jeremiah Nanai, who had a huge game, I thought, and only the 1 try to Corey Harawira-Naida. This was a big win. Like I say, we both didn't tip this one, Brad. What happened?
No one picked this one. Simon didn't pick this one either. This was the upset of the round in my eyes. If I take my prediction about the Dragons away, I've got 2 teams that I think are sure bets for the wooden spoon. Cowboys are one of them. So the Raiders, they didn't have their first 2 choices at a half. They don't have their hooker. I still thought they were going to be comfortable in this. But the Cowboys just started strong and never looked back. we mentioned it earlier. I thought Jason Tomalolo had a strong game. He seems to be getting back to that form that we expect from him, which is good signs for them. New signings, Chad Townsend and Peter Hiku, I thought were both strong on attack. Saw a lot of Peter Hiku and I just miss him.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, oh, no. But if the Cowboys can bring this level of effort week in, week out, they probably, I'm not going to say anything outlandish like top 8 bound or anything, but I think they're not going to be the easy beats that I expected them to be. And the Raiders, they're just struggling. Like I said, losing 2 halfbacks and a hooker is not good for any side. And I think the Raiders are going to struggle, but I'm still holding out hope for the Green Machine. Otherwise, Simon might stop watching if the Raiders start falling apart. But I've got hope that Ricky Stewart can get the side into a competitive state despite the hardships. Not saying they're going to do anything amazing. I don't even think I had them in my top 8 prediction. But you want to see them competitive. I don't want to see them be one of these teams that gets 30, 40 points put on them every week.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, They just look like they found it really hard to get into the game. The Raiders look like at times almost Corey Harawira-Naidoo was a one-man band a little bit, whereas the Cowboys, real team effort. Like I said before, I thought Jeremiah Nanai was really good. Tomalolo laid a nice foundation, and the halves pairing actually quite an unfancied halves pairing. Dearden and the Chad Townsend, I thought they went really well. They sort of, ran the game and just kept it trending away from the Raiders the whole time. And then as the game got deeper into the game, they accelerated away. And for a game, it looked like the Raiders, although they're struggling to get into it, they were in the game for most of the game. And then the last sort of 15, 20 minutes, the Cowboys pulled away.
Yeah.
Tough times for the Raiders, especially with the injury news. Hopefully, they can pull it together.
Yeah.
Now, Sunday's matches. My wooden spoon tip, the top of the table, Newcastle Knights. Big winners, 26-4 over the Tigers. 5 tries to 1. For the Knights, Jake Clifford, Tyson Frizzell, Bradman Best, Dominic Young, who's looking really good to start the year, and Dane Gagai. To only the 1 try for the Tigers, former Warrior Kenny Maumalo's continuing on his try-scoring ways. The Tigers didn't look good in this one, though, did they, Brad? They were well and truly done by Newcastle. What did you make of it?
Yeah, the Tigers went from really impressing me last week in their match against the Storm to just going back to what I expect from them. Tigers are the other team that I have as logical wooden spooners with the Cowboys. They just, basically rinse and repeat what I said about the Warriors. They looked lost on attack and made too many errors in defensive reads, just those coach-killing things. Facing the Knights without Kalen Ponga is the perfect time to face the Knights. But they didn't fire a shot until, that try for Ken in the 75th minute when I think the Knights had already logged off.
Yeah.
At that point, the game was well and truly over. Knights look good. Without a few key players, you expect to see them kind of decline in form, but I think they actually look better this week than they did last week, even though they didn't have Ponga. Jake Clifford built on his performance last week. He's looking really good right now. Dane Gagai was great again. He's probably that difference, getting an experienced player like him back into your backline, that when you do lose a guy like Ponga, you have another experienced guy out there that knows how to help a team get into attacking situations. So that's probably a great pickup for them, especially since Kalen Ponga only likes to play once a month. But my prediction of them not making the 8, I think, may be way off the mark.
Yeah, well, think how I feel. I tipped them for the spoon.
Yes.
You look at the start of the year, no Mitchell Pearce, but even in this game with no Ponga, but then you've got Clune and in particular Clifford's they're taking the bull by the horns and running the show. So From a team I thought didn't have a lot of hope of making the 8, they're looking really impressive to start the year. So I will quite happily take that one on the chin and put my hand up and say, oh, so far I'm wrong about the Knights.
It's early days yet. It's early days.
It is early days.
They'll plummet down that ladder. You watch.
And we'll climb. The Warriors will climb. Fingers crossed. And the later Sunday game, the Bulldogs going down to the Broncos, 16-10. The Broncos were winners. 3 tries to 2. Corey Oates and Herbie Farnworth with a double. And then 2 tries to the Bulldogs, Braden Burns and Jeremy Marshall-King. 4 all at halftime. This was a tight game and quite exciting game to end the round, Brad. We've been saying we tend to get a bit of a dud game on the Sunday night game, but this wasn't that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of the game the Bulldogs were in last week, where it was a low-scoring affair, but it was boring.
Yeah.
This one had a bit more excitement about it despite the low result. I don't know if that's a Bulldogs effect, if maybe the Bulldogs just seem to be able to be a team that stops high scores happening. That's probably a good thing. If you're the Bulldogs, you'd want to make sure you don't let a team score a lot of points. Fortunately, it didn't work out for them here. I think Herbie Farnworth was strong yet again. I think he's developing into a hell of a player. I think he's currently the best centre the Broncos have, which is insane when you think they have Katoni Staggs. But Katoni Staggs dropped probably the easiest try of his life.
He did.
In this match. Luckily for the Broncos, that wasn't the difference in this game. He did make up for that error on attack with some good defense, though. First game, we get to see Adam Reynolds as a Bronco, and I thought he played well. I think give this side a few weeks, and I think they could be trouble. He just needs to find his feet in his new club. Bulldogs, I think, are still a team that need time. They've had a lot of changes. I thought Tafita Pangai Jr. had a strong match for them. He kept his brain explosions to a minimum, which is always going to lead to a good game for him. But yeah, just like the Broncos, I think the Dogs need a few weeks, and then they could be dangerous once those combinations start to gel.
Yeah, I agree very much. I thought Adam Reynolds was solid without sort of overplaying his hand. I hope Katoni Staggs brought him a beer because Adam Reynolds threw him a beautiful tunnel ball, and he should have dotted that one down. But it was a good game. The Broncos are looking good. You know, that's 2-0. That's a very different start than they've had the past couple of years. So this might be the year the Broncos start trending upwards. But unfortunate for the Bulldogs. It was almost 2-0 for them, which would have been big, you know, from wooden spoon to going 2-0. But
definitely,
both teams look like they're trending okay for where they've been in the past couple of years. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good game, and no sin bin for our mate Jack Etherington. So you got to celebrate those little wins if you're Jack. Definitely.
So yeah, that was round 2. If Paul, if you can bring up our tipping comp leaderboard. So we improved this week. Simon was almost 100%. If his Raiders didn't let him down, he would have been 8 from 8, but he got 7 from 8. I was the worst of the round with 5 out of 8, and Richie was 6 out of 8. So Simon is in the lead with 10 out of 16, and Richie and I are both tied. Thankfully, B becomes before A, so we're on 8 for 16. So we're hitting 50% at the moment, which is great as the host of this show, to show that we at least get half of our predictions right. I don't think our preseason predictions are going to bode well by this math. But yeah, hopefully Simon doesn't leave us in his dust this week with his picks.
Hopefully not. Otherwise, we'll have to chop him out.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Paul. There we've got a quick look at the ladder. We won't go on it too much. It's only 2 rounds in, but surprising to see the Knights number 1 and Manly dead last. If you'd said that before the season started, I think most people would laugh at you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got Knights, Panthers, Broncos, Storm, Cowboys, Dragons, Eels, and Roosters as our top 8. And some decent sides in the bottom 8 there, with the Titans at 9th, Sharks 10th, Bulldogs 11th, then the Raiders 12th, and then Rabbitohs, Warriors, Tigers, and Manly as the only teams in the competition yet to get a win. Okay, and Simon's saying the board's technically wrong. He got the Sharks and Raiders matches wrong. I wrote you down different. But I'll happily take one away from you, Simon. All right, hold on. So ignore that ladder. We're changing it. You're still ahead. You're one ahead, though. So did you... Okay, yeah. So you went with the Eels then?
I was just joking, Simon. We would never chop you out of the comp. You can maintain your 2-point lead if you like.
Yeah, okay. No, I've changed that now. So we'll make it... He got 6 out of 8. Which means he's on 9 out of 16. You're still ahead. So
yeah,
I'll update that properly. But yeah, good honesty there. I wouldn't have said it myself. It is what it is. Yeah.
Well, we know you wouldn't have owned up to it.
No.
While we got the ladder up there and moving into questions, I just thought I'd ask you. I think probably we talked about this last year as well, but whether your opinions have changed. Do we need to change the points system? Should there be a bonus point for finishing within a sort of certain amount? Because as you say, some of those teams on 0 points have had some real close finishes. Do they deserve really to be on 0?
No, get out of here with that rugby union talk, Paul. You don't get rewarded for losing. Come on,
Brad. We lose a lot of games by.
I know it would be beneficial as a Warriors fan, but no, you can't. There's a lot of things wrong with rugby union, and that's one of them, rewarding people for losing. Next, we'll be giving trophies to everyone that participates. Come on now.
So not a 4-try bonus?
No.
You don't like rewarding attacking footy?
No, that doesn't happen to the Warriors, so that doesn't help us. But no, yeah. I like them using the points differential. Depending on how you go, it dictates where you are if the points are close. Maybe it'd be different if the Warriors were 16th right now, but but no, I'm happy with them to keep it as is.
Nocturnal Rights asked us. So we are into questions, aren't we?
Yeah, go for it.
He was like, any test footy this year?
Yeah, and I think I saw Simon answer that for him. So there's no test footy as such because the World Cup. So I guess you could say there is test footy because there's the World Cup at the end of the year. But there's no mid-year tests, I believe, put in there. I think they're focused on just having Origin to allow Australia to try to get back into form since they are plummeting down the world rankings.
So no sort of Anzac test. I mean, should there be a test on Anzac Day, do you think?
They would probably love to have one on Anzac Day, but the Warriors always play on that day. So I think the Kiwis, if they did that, it would hurt the Warriors because no one would be playing.
True. Going back to the points thing, Simon, do you think the team that loses Golden Point deserves a point? So if it's a draw at the end of standard time, you get at least 1 point.
No, I'm still going to be the wanker over here saying no.
Yeah, if you lose, you lose.
Yeah, I think if you get to that point where if you lose in Golden Point but you still get a point, you may as well just give both teams 1 point and don't do Golden Point. Either make it a draw or not. But yeah, it's heartbreaking for a team that if you're losing Golden Point, getting so close. But that's the thing of sport. There's always a winner and always a loser, unless you're playing cricket, where everyone's losing.
Simon mentions that with the new TV deal, there's no mid-year test anymore, and something about the All-Star nations playing England of it is that something suggesting that's some sort of pseudo way of getting the getting the Australian national side to get an extra game in.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that not last week, the week before, that they did it last year as well, where they basically put an expat side together to face England, so England get a game in the middle of the year where they get to play. Doesn't really work for them. They got pantsed by the expat team last year. But yeah, it's just you won't see the likes of Cleary and Tommy Turbo. It's strictly basically Australians that are playing in the Super League, which is still probably the best players over there. But yeah, that's probably the only test we get mid-year. I still think we should be getting some Pacific Island and Kiwi games in the middle of the year. I know the Australians, they love their origin, but there's a lot of guys that don't get to play that don't get any taste of international footy until the end of the year, if they're lucky, depending on how the Australians deem is allowed. They have full control of it, unfortunately.
And let's if you get Tonga at Mount Smart, you're going to fill it every time, right? So it's a good money one as well. The another one from Nocturnal Rights. Oops, wrong one there. Do the Warriors need to move Ewan Aitken back into the centres to get some experience there?
You go first, Richie.
Sure. I think going back to before round one, when we were selecting our teams, did you select them in the centres, Brad? I did. So
no, I didn't.
You didn't. So I kind of thought that we were lacking a bit of experience out in the centres, and we've got a lot of cover in our forward pack. So I thought it made pretty good sense to put Aitken in the centres, and that's where I would have selected him. Feeling a little bit vindicated after the weekend's game, where I know it's almost like a systematic defensive problem with the Warriors, but we were getting torched both sides out wide by the Titans. So someone like Aitken, who's a noted defender out in the centres, I feel like it would help remedy that a little bit. Is that what you would have said, Brad?
No, complete opposite. No, I keep him in the second row. As everyone who watches the show will probably know, and if anyone reads my reviews, the NRL has gone a step backwards with centres, because centres for some reason don't know that there's a guy standing outside of them that's paid to get the ball and go over that line that they get points on. And Aitken is one of the worst at it. He will defend really well, which is great, but having him out there increases your defense, but it severely depletes the attack. He just dies with the ball. So I originally had Jesse Arthurs and Rocco Berry as my centres. Rocco Berry's still young, but you're not going to get that experience unless you actually get to play. And I think Jesse Arthurs showed that he can do his job on attack. The defense thing, I think they'll get better there. They can't really get much worse. But it's just a trust thing. And if you keep changing it, you're not going to develop that. But yeah, there is a lot of depth. So if you did move Aitken out there, you're not going to deplete the second row stocks. But at the moment, we've got Bailey Sirenen, who I'm going to go out on a limb here and say delivers less than I would in a Warriors jersey right now. Ooh. So the fact that he's not getting dropped, shows that they're not really going to change things yet.
Cool.
Was there anything else?
So I've got a couple for you this week. So you're bashing the Eagles with that slow start for the season. Look, you don't win the grand final in March, do you? Let's be honest. Is this a way of just keeping their powder dry and letting their team peak for the right time of the year? No point peaking in March. Why not just let the guys have a nice steady pre-season and actually use the first half of the year or the first few rounds as your pre-season?
I don't think Hasler would be that kind of guy. He's kind of wanting to win every week. But yeah, you're right. You don't win it in March. So, like we talked, they were a sniff away from being grand finalists last year, and they were 0-4, and I was talking about them as wooden spooners, like this time last year. So, it's early days. I think they'll come right. I think they're still going to be a top 8 side, not going to be minor premiers like I predicted. I don't think, but if they're not playing finals footy, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, I think you got to look at who they've played in the opening 2 rounds as well.
Yeah,
playing the Panthers and then the Roosters, who are 2 heavyweight clubs. But they will want to address that because that was exactly their problem last year, is not beating the top 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah.
And then a final one for me, and you might want to leave this one until next week so you guys have time to mull it over. But which one player? I know you've both said you're both anti long-term contracts, but if you were a club, a GM, which one player do you think would you give a long-term contract to in the NRL at the moment?
So it's any player on the table.
Any player on the table. Say it's anyone that you're. So pretend you're the GM of the Panthers or the Bulldogs as well. You're the GM of that particular club. Which guy would you want to would you give a long-term contract to? So you're here now for you're my franchise player, to use an American term.
Do you have an answer, Richie?
Yeah, it's got to be Cleary for me, and that's why I was sort of saying I think the Panthers are making the right move by offering him good money and a decent length contract. He's this generation's marquee halfback. You know, in generations gone by, you've had Cronks and guys like that, Cronks, Thurstons. He's this generation's elite halfback. I'm not saying he's at their level, currently, but he's trending that way. So he's the obvious choice.
Yeah. So since you've taken the easy answer, I'll put a bit more thought into it, and I'll go with Harry Grant. He's had a bit of issues with injuries, but he is, he's barely out of his diapers, and he's already one of the best hookers in the game. I would not be letting him go anytime soon. I'd be locking him in, and that could be completely biased because one of the biggest weaknesses at the Warriors is hooker. So I'm always paying a bit more attention to the hookers right now to see if we can lure anybody. But yeah, I think I'm not going to say he's going to be a Cameron Smith like hooker, but I think he's going to be in talks to being one of the better hookers around for a long time to come.
Yeah, so I'd say with Nathan Cleary, his value is not going to go up much. I mean, he's already very valuable. I guess with Harry Grant, similar sort of thing, and he's only 24. Will his value go up? Will he find himself underpaid? Would he get upset by that? I guess that's the only question around Harry Grant. But there you go.
All right. Well, I'm in that answer though. I was the boss of the Roosters, so money is no option. So it would be fine.
That's it from the from the live chat.
All right. So I'm just writing down Simon's picks because he's just put them in the chat. So while I do that, I will ask you the question first, and then we'll do me at the end. So there's now, we mentioned on the ladder, but there's now 4 teams yet to record a win this season: Rabbitohs, Warriors, Tigers, and Seagulls. Which of those teams surprises you the most to be 0-2?
Well, I'll scrub 2 off that list right off the bat: Warriors and Tigers. I expect the Tigers to be 0-2. Warriors, you could argue either way. Maybe we should probably beat teams like Titans and Dragons, but this is the Warriors we're talking about, so we've got every chance of losing to them as well. So that leaves Manly and the Rabbitohs, and both teams have played decent. I mean, we just said Manly played Panthers and now the Roosters. Rabbitohs just fell short against the Storm, so I don't think out of those 4 teams, I'm surprised where either of them are. If I had to pick, the Sea Eagles, just for how easily they've been beaten. I would have at least expected them to put up more of a fight in their first 2 games.
Yeah, if it was me, I would have said Manly as well. I would have expected them to get at least 1 game, or it's probably more the manner they've lost.
Yeah.
than the actual performance.
Yeah, absolutely. You got those tips written down, Brad? You ready for mine?
Yeah, I've written them down. So have at it.
All right. I was just wanting to have a bit of fun with my question this week, Brad. So I wanted you to name me your Mount Rushmore of Warriors players, past or present.
Yeah. Okay. So I've gone a bit above and beyond and given 2. So the first one, I've made my Mount Rushmore of Warriors that have had an impact on the club. So I've gone with Stacey Jones, Simon Mannering, Kevin Campion, and Steve Price. They're ones that I think have been at the club and had a positive impact. Really changed. There's been a lot of talk in the media about Kevin Campion, about how the whole aspect of training at the Warriors changed when he came on board. I think Steve Price was another guy that came in and really changed how the Warriors did things. Stacey and Simon kind of speak for themselves. Simon's kind of your pinnacle Warrior, if anything, and Stacey, as an icon with the club. So that was that. Then I decided I'd go a little bit left field. And go with my personal favorites, Mount Rushmore. These are probably guys that won't appear on any Mount Rushmore for anybody else on the planet. They're just people that I have a personal attachment to. I've got Feta Paliacina, who is my favorite Warrior of all time. As you know, sitting there next to me at the stadium for many years. Man crush indeed. I love him to bits.
The biggest man crush.
I would sit at the stadium next to Richard, yelling at the sidelines to put him on.
Yep, I can vouch.
So yeah, he's number 1 for me. Then I've got Mark Tooky. Again, man crush again. When I was in high school, Mark Tooky was my favorite player. He was kind of, how's this going to sound? In an age where props were changing in shape, Tukey was kind of that throwback where he still looked like a prop, and he looked very similar to how I looked running around on a field, except he was a lot better and a lot faster than I ever could be. But he was kind of like that throwback, and he was like a cult hero at the club for all those years. Flowing into that, the next one's Akuma Tai. I just loved Akuma Tai to bits. I went to a Warriors awards night once, and they had like a silent auction where you could buy a picture of a player, and I spent money, I'm not going to admit how much, on a giant Akuma Tai picture that ended up on my wall that was signed by him. And then lastly is probably my first Warrior.
So where is it now? Warrior. Wait, is it? Surely it's still on the wall somewhere.
It was in. I don't even know where it is anymore. I think it got lost.
Brad.
It got lost in the moving several houses. I think it's still in our storage in our garage. But yeah, the last player is my first favorite Warrior ever, which was Haichiro Okazini.
Nice.
So that's it. Yeah. So I gave you 8 players to go on 2 different mountains.
You just struggled to fit all those players into 4, didn't you?
Yeah.
No, I can. Yeah. I thought I had 2 correct of who I thought you'd put in your personal one, Akuma Tai and Paliacina. I thought those were non-negotiables, and
yeah,
obviously
I couldn't put either of them on a legitimate Mount Rushmore for like overall, so that's why I made a separate one. Because for personal thing, I don't think you could really say they had like a big changing impact on the club. But you know me well. I kind of pick a player that's not like everyone's favorite. I'll have a guy that just is the guy that I gravitate towards. At the moment, it's still Ben Murdoch-Masila. Probably be Aaron Penny in a couple of weeks, but we'll see. But we may as well get into round 3 in our picks now. Simon's given the picks, so I've written them down here. And we'll go over it. So Thursday night, we've got Dragons, Sharks. I've gone with the Sharks. I don't like the Dragons, but I think the Dragons have been good, but I think the Sharks have shown me a bit more. So I've gone for them, and Simon's also gone for them. What about you?
I went Dragons. I thought both teams, looked pretty good last week. Really, I just picked Dragons because you hate them.
Fair enough. Never heard a more logical way of picking. Friday night, the first game is the Tigers Warriors. Simon's gone for the Warriors. I have two. Taking the first two rounds off the table, I always would have picked this game as a Warriors win. Depending on what Tigers team shows up, it could be a bit more interesting, but I think the Tigers have looked worse than the already poor Warriors that we've seen. So I've gone with Warriors.
I went with Warriors as well. Even though it's our third halves pairing in 3 weeks due to injury, the Tigers lose Jackson Hastings as well, but it's got to be this week, doesn't it? We lose this game, I think Brad's straight to Rebel Sport in the morning to buy a Manly jersey.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far. I can't afford jerseys. They're so expensive. I might look into tattoo removing to get the Warriors tattoo off me, maybe, if we lose to the Tigers and go 0-3. But the final game on Friday is Rabbitohs Roosters. Simon has gone with the Rabbitohs here. I suppose if there's any time to get a win, they got to get one soon. I've gone with the Roosters, though. I think the Roosters have looked dangerous, and I think they're really starting to gel. So I'm leaving the Rabbitohs on 0 wins for another week.
Yeah, me too. I've gone Roosters. I think the Roosters looked really good weekend just gone. And the Rabbitohs look rusty. I know they clawed their way back into it, but they weren't so great in the first half. I think the Roosters will keep them winless for another week.
Definitely. Then the first game on Saturday, we've got Panthers Knights. Simon's gone with Panthers. I've followed suit. I think Knights have been looking good, but Panthers are Panthers, so I've gone with them.
Yep, Panthers. Too hard to tip against them.
Yeah. Then we've got the Storm and Eels. I think the picture you got there is the wrong picture, Paul.
It's round 2. Yeah,
it's round 2. Sorry, that might be my error.
Sounds about right.
But it's all right. It's all right. I was looking at the picture wasn't matching up to what I've got written down. Where were we now? Storm Eels. So I've gone with the Storm. Like I said in the reviews, Eels are a bit wishy-washy and Storm just know how to win. So I've got them locked down. Simon has as well.
As do I. I think Eels beat them last time round, but I think if we go back on my history, I pick Storm every week. I'm not changing.
Yeah. Next game, we've got the Raiders and Titans, and there's many tears shed over in Canberra because Simon has gone against the Raiders, and he's gone with the Titans. I am still bleeding green for them. I've gone with the Raiders this week. It was hard for me, but they're playing in Canberra, so I'm just going with them because it's bloody hard to win in Canberra. So it's probably one I've got very wrong here, but what have you gone with?
I went Titans. You're a brave boy picking Raiders, Brad. They're decimated with injury. But you're right, they are hard to beat in Canberra. I've gone Titans. These two teams tend to play out quite exciting, close games. I think I'm going Titans.
Titans. First game on Sunday, we've got Broncos Cowboys. I've gone with Broncos. Cowboys got that surprise win last week. It's a bit of a shame for them to get their only win of the year out early, but I think Broncos will be too strong for them here. And Simon's gone with them as well, Broncos.
Yeah, I went Broncos. I think this one could be a bit of a humdinger. Both teams will be confident after the weekend just gone, picking up wins. Broncos actually being 2-0, so yeah, could be a great game, but I think Broncos will edge it.
I see Simon just put a comment in. Is that comment meaning you want me to change your pick to the Raiders? Or do you mean that it's just going to be tough, but you're still going with Titans? While I'm waiting for you, we'll go into the last game, Seagulls versus Bulldogs. I've gone with Seagulls. Simon has as well. Bulldogs have been looking good, but the Seagulls have got to get a win at some point. I think this is the perfect time.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'd be very keen to see the Bulldogs on the other side of the team sheet this week. even though the Bulldogs are looking a wee bit better so far, but I think this has got to be the week that they get off the mark.
Definitely. So, there's a few different things. I don't know. Simon said keep the pick the way it is. He just said the Titans could freeze to death in Canberra. Yeah, that's why I've picked them. But yeah, I'm happy you stick with the Titans because I need to catch up to you, Simon. So I will take that. I'll take that win. So yeah, some interesting. A few games we all agreed on. I won't go over everyone, but I'll look at. We all agree on the Warriors beating the Tigers. All agree on the Panthers beating the Knights. All agree on Storm and Eels. And then all agree on the Broncos beating the Cowboys and the Seagulls beating the Bulldogs. So hopefully that means, judging by Simon's picks, we're going to get a couple right this week, Richie, because we got the same pick as him. So, yeah, we have gone a bit long in the show, but I'll do a quick recap of the Super League since we left them off last week. Round 5, the only thing I'll go over just a few ones. So I said Wigan would beat Catalans, and I got it wrong. They were thumped 28-0 by Catalans last week. There weren't really anything too much. St. Helens walloped Warrington 28-2. And we've got round 6 is a bit more in depth. So Wigan got back to winning. They were 32-22 over Castleford. Salford defeated Leeds 26-12. Catalans defeated Hull KR 18-10. Wakefield defeated Warrington 38-22. Toulouse, the new side, beat St. Helens 22-20.
First versus last.
Yeah, first versus last, and their first win in Super League, which is if you're going to get your first win, you may as well get it against one of the best sides in the competition.
Yeah.
And then Hull FC defeated Huddersfield 14-6. Now, Simon will give us the knowledge here, but there's no Super League next week. They're having a week off. I'm sure there's a reason that Simon will explain to everybody because I don't understand the Northern Hemisphere. But the week after, round 7 commences with Wigan versus Hull FC, Huddersfield versus Catalans, Hull KR versus Warrington, Castleford versus Toulouse, Leeds versus St. Helens, and Wakefield Trinity versus Salford. Oh, yeah, that's right. So the reason it's missed is because of Challenge Cup, which naturally I didn't write down the Challenge Cup round. But I'll keep an eye on that so we can discuss some Challenge Cup at the end of next week's show. And yeah, Simon says to be totally safe, Super League, you need 11 wins to avoid relegation. Unfortunately, I think you're going to see, much like we saw in NPC, that team that gets promoted will get relegated the next year because they're not at that level. Maybe it won't. Maybe they'll get a few more upsets and keep themselves out of being relegated. But I think you could see Toulouse down there again. Anything else you want to add before we go, Richie?
No, not really. Just as always, just nice having a chat with you and the viewers, and Paul for making us look silly with his thug lifes and man crushes.
Man crushes.
It's always fun. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us tonight on the Standoff with Brad and Richie for your weekly update on Rugby League. Tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or at convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers for joining me, Richie, and thanks for all the work in the background, Paul, and good night, everyone.
Cheers.